Take my word for it. I live there. Come to Florida. Get pre-approved right now with my guy, Michael Kotze. Call him at 561-441-2730. He's got Choice Mortgage and a great real estate team. Get pre-approved right now. Michael Kotze, 561-441-2730. Buy in Florida right now. Don't wait. Save money on state taxes. Make your move today with Choice Mortgage. Trust me, Florida is waiting. This guy's so good, he did my commercials in Florida, too. Mike Kotze, 561-441-2730. A ride.
Meet the computer you can talk to. With Copilot on Windows, working, creating, and collaborating is as easy as talking. Got writer's block? Share your screen with Copilot Vision to help spark inspiration, and use Copilot Voice to have a conversation and brainstorm ideas. Or maybe you need some tech help. With Copilot Vision, Copilot sees what you see. Let Copilot talk you through step-by-step guidance so you can master new apps, games, and skills faster. Try now at windows.com/Copilot.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Roger Stone Show. As I get ready to head to the White House Christmas party in Washington, D.C., where it is predicted to be 29 degrees, I am grateful to be invited and looking forward to seeing my friend, the President. It's interesting, I was supposed to go to an earlier Christmas party, and the President didn't know that I had not attended, but he said very nice things about me in his public remarks and how long we've been friends. For that, I am grateful. Yet, and I should say, he forges ahead, very much like Ronald Reagan, ignoring the panicans and recognizing that his policies, particularly his tax cuts, his regulatory cuts, and his shrewd negotiating to ramp up federal revenues through trade, will ultimately bring food prices even lower than they are now, although they have come down, drive gasoline, which is hitting historic lows, even further down, that once he gets a friendly Federal Reserve majority, he will get an interest rate cut commensurate with the current inflation rate and unemployment rate, which are the things that the Fed is supposed to take into consideration, both of which are lower today than when the Fed cut rates to try to boost Joe Biden's reelection. And it has been now more than 100 days since Tulsi Gabbard finally declassified the long-hidden, long-buried federal documents that demonstrate that Donald Trump was the victim of a coup d'etat, of an interagency attempt to overturn his legal election as president, and they spied on him and cheated to do it. Yet to this day, everybody we know associated with this has yet to be charged, or I should say no one. Speaking of the conspirators being Barack Obama himself, although the constitutionality of prosecuting him, there may be some questions about. Then Vice President Joe Biden, who would not be immune to prosecution because he was not president at that time, maybe due to it under current law, have to be examined. But John Brennan, the CIA director, the largest orchestrator of the plot, James Comey, who seems to have slipped the punch in Virginia. But that's where we have breaking news today. We now learn that the U.S. attorney in Virginia, Eric Siebert, who was essentially fired by President Donald Trump, had actually agreed 2 weeks before he was fired to allow Daniel Richman, the man to whom James Comey sent classified information to leak, directly contrary to his testimony before Congress, the very crime he is charged with. And they agreed to return Mr. Richman's materials, emails, and so on that had been seized in a criminal investigation to him. This is absolutely outrageous. So in other words, the prosecutor is caught red-handed burying the evidence that Comey is trying to fix his case. It is beyond belief. But we also know that Mr. Siebert, although he was appointed by Donald Trump, he was strongly supported by the two Democrat senators, Warner and Tim Kaine. That's bad news right there. He was originally recommended by the governor, and he never disclosed the fact that he had a very material conflict in the James Comey case. That is, that his father-in-law was, as his wife's father, was the godfather to James Comey's daughter. And that this same individual had served as an attorney representing James Comey in his capacity as FBI director. A material conflict of interest that should have been disclosed. But this new evidence that the Comey case is fixed comes on the heel of a stunning, I would say, deconstruction of that case. I mean, first of all, recognize that Comey's case was not dismissed, nor was the case against Letitia James dismissed on the basis of the merits of the evidence against them, both of which is overwhelming. It was dismissed on a technicality that was foisted upon us by essentially 4 judges, all of whom violated the canon of ethics, all of whom showed bias, hostility, reliance on media sources, actually violating the Constitution and the court rules again and again and again. That would be Judge Michael S. Nachmanoff, Judge Cameron McGowan Curry, Magistrate Judge William Fitzpatrick, and you can now add to that, as my friend Julie Kelly points out, Judge Kolar Kotelly, who agreed to give Daniel Richman, the man who was indeed instructed by James Comey, contrary to his sworn testimony, instructed to leak those documents to the New York Times, give him the evidence back. This is almost beyond belief. And you have to wonder where the prosecutions are from the Republican Party. President Trump is out there trying to end multiple wars, trying to destroy the narco-terrorists and the Marxists in our hemisphere, ably aided by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is like a new man, a man who I supported for the Senate when he first ran against former Governor Charlie Crist, who was a political chameleon who ran as both a Republican, Democrat, and an independent, a man who began as describing himself as a Reagan Republican, ended up at the end of his career calling himself an Obama Democrat. He went from being pro-life to being pro-abortion. He went from being a pro-Second Amendment to being for gun control. He was a charming, hard-working politician, but he believed in nothing other than winning and holding public office. And Marco Rubio's politics heretofore have not been mine, in the sense that he was a neocon, Bush Republican. The Bush people greatly resented Marco Rubio's presidential candidacy. I think you have to run when you think your time is, and I think he worked very hard to run for president, but he and Jeb Bush had bad feelings because the Bush people felt that they had made Marco by helping him in that Republican primary with Governor Charlie Crist, who was extraordinarily well funded. But Marco Rubio very wisely kind of grabbed onto the Tea Party label and rode to the U.S. Senate. There's a terrific piece that speaks to this issue of judicial overreach and judicial tyranny, as in the actions of the judges who have dismissed this case against James Comey. And a prosecutor who was actually returning to one of the criminals the evidence that proves the case against Comey is beyond belief. Now you have the fact that Lindsay Halligan, who we were told was an inexperienced lawyer, an insurance lawyer, often mocked as a beauty queen because she was very attractive, when in fact she was she had outstanding academic credentials, had graduated from both college and law school cum laude, had risen to be the managing partner of the civil division of a major Florida law firm specializing in areas of mortgage, housing, and financial fraud. So she understood this case. they determined that her appointment by President Donald Trump was not valid. They are incorrect in that ruling. Trump filled her consistent with the Government Vacancies Act, but as I say, multiple federal judges moved very aggressively to have her declared ineligible. This also voided the case that Lindsay Halligan brought against Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, which is quite interesting because we're told now that Lindsay Halligan, the inexperienced insurance lawyer, which is a smear, did go to a grand jury and did, in fact, secure an indictment based on the evidence. It's a documents case. All the evidence, as my good friend at White Collar Fraud, Sam Antar, points out to me, all the evidence is in the documents. Yet we are expected to believe that the more experienced government prosecutor who replaced Halligan, who were told was selected by the Justice Department, has tried now twice to go to the grand jury, has not been able to secure an indictment. What we were told was that the lawyer selected has not been in a criminal courtroom on any issue since 2011, and that his specialty is civil law. So why he would be the attorney in this case is really quite extraordinary. But the real fundamental question here is, will anyone do anything about it? The House Republicans do not move to impeach or restrict these judges, other than some who have valiantly tried to rein in Judge Boasberg, the D.C. judge who randomly seems to get every case that matters to Donald Trump. Somebody needs to examine whether there's the spin of the so-called wheel in the clerk of the D.C. district courts, because the odds, the mathematical odds, just defy Judge Boasberg being assigned every single case. The president, if there's any question about his popularity, he went to the Army-Navy game and he dazzled there. Let's see if we can roll. Let's see if we have time to roll the ovation.
We are at the half of America's game, and another great tradition here as President Trump crosses over to the other side of the stadium, ensuring he spends equal time with the midshipmen and the Corps of Cadets. As we welcome everybody to the Geico Halftime Report.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. Paul Sperry, in my opinion, is one of the very best investigative reporters out there today. Writes often for the New York Post. In this case, has written a terrific piece for Real Clear Investigations, I believe it is. But he shows that the Russian collusion story is even worse than we knew. And that the heart of this, the Steele dossier, and the evidence against Donald Trump was suspect by CIA professionals from the beginning. They knew it had been provided by a former British secret agent. They knew that Hillary Clinton had paid millions for it. They thought correctly it was a fabrication, but neither John Bolton nor Gina Haspel nor Secretary of State warned Donald Trump that this was being formed into a false weapon against him. It is really extraordinary, the digging here that Paul Sperry has done, but there's no question that the professionals provided the information to their superiors who elected not to show it to Trump. John Bolton very specifically was briefed on it and never mentioned it to the president. Mike Pompeo, who still to this day pretends to be a Trump supporter, had it and chose not to show it to the president. He was shown a draft but took no action. So with friends like this, who needs enemies? One thing that is missing across the country is truly great Cantonese Chinese food. When I was growing up, living in the country outside Norwalk, Connecticut, on Sunday nights, my parents would take roughly the 50-minute drive from our home to go to a restaurant called The Good Earth that was under kind of right near the bridge in South Norwalk, Connecticut. It was the finest old-style Cantonese Chinese food I have ever had. It was run by a man named Winston Dong, so he's very smiling and wearing a suit. It had extraordinary chicken chow mein, extraordinary egg rolls, terrific Chinese barbecued ribs. You see the difference is Chinese ribs are not grilled, they're baked, so they're marinated in a sugar-based barbecue sauce and then baked, unlike American style or Texas style ribs. Great thick egg rolls the size of your wrist. Those don't exist anyplace today. Great pork fried rice, of course, starting the whole thing off with either wonton or egg drop soup. So I was very saddened to hear this week that Christine Lee's, which is a historic restaurant in South Florida, originally in Sunny Isles, and then later on located at the Hollywood Racetrack Gulfstream, has suddenly closed. This was a place where celebrities were seen. Christine Lee had survived a violent mugging in a parking lot in New Jersey. She moved to Sunny Isles Beach, and her place was originally inside the Golden Strand Hotel, then moving to the Thunderbird Resort Motel, and finally going to an address on Collins Avenue. It was the place to go. We're talking about major celebrities, Bob Hope, Steve and Edie, Muhammad Ali, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Arthur Godfrey, Joe Namath, the jockey Eddie Arcaro, Dean Martin. All of them can be seen on the walls with Roger Stone as having eaten there, although some of those photographs looked a little faded. It was one of the last great places in the world where you could have shrimp with lobster sauce. You could have it with either light or dark sauce. It was really extraordinary. And it is a shame. Ultimately, Christine Lee retired. Her daughter, Mary Lee, took over. Mary Lee was a very gracious hostess, a beautiful Chinese woman who was very much ran the restaurant on most nights. Enormously gracious and great woman, but suddenly, without any explanation, it was unfortunately closed. So, great Cantonese Chinese restaurants in South Florida, now a rarity. At the time they flourished here. I'd like to hear where your favorite place is. You can send it to us at askstone@rogerstoneshow.com. Send me your tips on Chinese food. We'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. The New York Times tells us breathlessly that Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in his hardline anti-communist policy on Venezuela, dreams of taking down the brutal regime in Cuba. This is why I like Marco Rubio. We'll talk about that later and talk about the problems that Marco Rubio faces, not just in Venezuela, but also now in Honduras and, of course, in Cuba. Also, the Chinese are on the move in all of the CARICOM, the small Caribbean nations. Chinese money and influence is entering almost all of those countries. That is yet another issue Marco Rubio has to deal with. But every once in a while, I like to get on somebody who is a thinker, somebody who kind of gets the big picture, understands the treachery of the deep state, understands the mass media and how it moves, understands the courts and how they cheat. And that's when I go looking for Rod Martin. You can find him at rodmartin.org. He writes the Rod Martin Report. He is a technological genius, an entrepreneur, a venture capitalist, a conservative. an investor, a futurist, a thinker above all, a thinker. If you don't subscribe to the Rod Martin Report, I highly recommend it to you. Rod, thank you for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.
Great to be here.
Rod, I don't know if you've been able to listen to the show, but I was talking about the tyranny of these federal judges, the continued cover-up of the crimes of Comey, Brennan, Rice, Clapper, Biden, Obama, Mueller, Weissman, and others. Now, stunning news story that CIA Director Gina Haspel, John Durham himself, the special counsel, and John Bolton were all told that the underlying Steele dossier, which was used to frame Trump, was not up to, that had been created, that it had no credibility, but they failed to tell Donald Trump. But you have an amazing piece. I'm just going to lead you into this. It's a deep dive, how the deep state subverts the Constitution, how we beat it. You begin very thoughtfully saying there's no reason so many policies never seem to change no matter who wins an election. Presidents come and go, as you correctly point out. Congress changes hands, yet the machinery of government grinds on untouched, unbothered, largely unaccountable. Federal agents issue thousands of new rules governing everything, including our businesses and our lives. And you say there's a way to fix this. My friend, you have the floor.
Well, I have to say, there are 537 federal elected officials. There are just under 5,000 federal political appointees, appointed mostly by the president, Senate confirmable to a large degree. And there are nearly 3 million federal employees actually making and executing policy all day, every day. So, of course, nothing really changes. Those people are careerists. They're there for the long haul. And this is all by design. This began in the Roosevelt administration, Franklin, not Teddy. And for 90 years, we have had the results of that, which are, plain and simple, a shadow one-party government. And that, too, was by design. Roosevelt didn't mind having independent agencies. He thought Humphrey's executor, which was just argued before the Supreme Court on Monday, he thought Humphrey's executor was rightly decided in 1935. Why would he care? Because he was creating all these agencies and he was staffing them entirely with Democrats. And then those people hire their successors. So we've had this shadow government, this deep state, for most of a century, nearly an entire century, and we're starting to chip away at it. And the only man who has ever meaningfully chipped away at it is, in fact, Donald Trump. So thank you, Roger, for encouraging him to run for president, because he turns out to be one of the most consequential presidents of all time.
He's a phenomenon. He's a force of nature. He's his own man. I'm a supporter of Susie Wiles. I've known her for 25 years. She takes some heat from many, sometimes taking the blame for things that are not her fault or that she's not responsible for, other times for assorted jealousies. But I think she does an amazing job for this president. This president trusts her. I've known her for 25 years. She and I did the Reagan campaign together. She worked for Jack Kemp against George H.W. Bush. She worked for Donald Trump rather than working for Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio, both of whom tried to hire her. She very ably guided Rick Scott, an outsider, to the U.S. Senate. She extraordinarily was able to land the Ron DeSantis ship, despite the fact that he was a terrible candidate who wouldn't look people in the eyes and would not seek to learn anything about state issues. So how do we take on this model? Because you're right, Harry Truman signs the CIA into law in he dissolves the OSS, the original surveillance system, intelligence system. He does away with the OSS, and in 1947, he signs into law the existence of the CIA. By 1963, when Kennedy is assassinated, he actually writes an op-ed piece for the Washington Post. This is a former president of the United States that says that he now realizes that the agency has gone rogue, essentially, and that he should never have signed into law, and that they're violating their international only charter, meaning they're operating politically and as spies and to undermine the government in our own country. So that is not been revealed. How do we fix this, Rod? How do we fix it?
Well, you've just laid out the key point, which is that it's multifaceted. There are so many different details to it that most people just, their eyes glaze over. They just can't keep up with it. Donald Trump is not that guy. He is shockingly capable of seeing all of the pieces on the board. So one of the things that we have to do immediately is the Supreme Court needs to overturn Humphrey's executor, which of course created this abomination, this absolutely unconstitutional monster of independent agencies. There is no such creature in our system. You have an elected legislature. You have an elected executive. You have an appointed judiciary that is confirmed by an elected legislature after being appointed by an elected president. All of these things exist. An independent agency is an attempt to reestablish the kind of aristocracy we had a revolution against. It's just horrifying. And you heard Justice Brown sit up there and say at length that she did not think that we should have any ability through elected office holders to remove PhDs and engineers and experts of various sorts from the government, that they had to be left alone to act. Well, fortunately, I'm pretty sure there are 6 votes against that position, but she's saying that there should be an aristocracy created by leftist-controlled institutions like Harvard and Stanford who mint supposedly expert people, certainly credentialed people, and then they go into government and they rule us for our own good. That's just horrifying. So getting rid of Humphrey's executor is a big step forward. It allows the president to actually hire and fire. That's a very, very big deal. The president can't possibly exercise executive power if he can't hire and fire. And once he can, he's in a position to start reining in that bureaucracy. So that's one thing. But you're right to point out the surveillance state. This has been just off the chart, and it's multivariate also. We saw that when Elon and the president shut down USAID. The week that USAID shut down, Politico missed payroll for the only time in its history. That's not an accident. They have been funneling money through these various agencies to influence American politics for a very long time, as you know better than most. And the truth of the matter is, if you train an intelligence apparatus to overthrow governments, you shouldn't be surprised when they come do it at home.
Yeah, it is. There's no question that Dwight Eisenhower was right when he left power. He tried to warn us about the accumulated power of the military-industrial complex, what we would now see as the deep state. This is unelected bureaucrats and academics and others who run our agencies of government, are deeply embedded in the Justice Department, in the Department of War, in the State Department particularly, but in all facets of government, who answer to no one, particularly in our judiciary. And I think these are the people who ultimately, as you know, I believe they orchestrated the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, because he stood in the way of the New World Order and record war profits. And he was actually looking for ways to make peace and not go to war with Russia and Cuba. I believe these are the same people who took Richard Nixon out when he threatened to rein in the power of the national security apparatus. And now, yet again, no one in our current Justice Department, no one in the Republican majority in the Senate, and no one in the House will do anything about it. It is really extraordinary. And if you look at the swiftness in which I was charged, and General Flynn was charged, and Donald Trump was charged, all on fabricated evidence and on false politically motivated premises, and you see the outrage that's in the declassified documents valiantly released by Tulsi Gabbard, and several tranches of them, you see a very deep conspiracy and the admission of a coup d'etat. Yet, will any of these people be held accountable? Rod, your view?
Well, I understand that Tulsi is needed at DNI, but there are days when I wish she were the Attorney General, because she clearly nailed it, and she said it in no uncertain terms, no pulling punches. This was an attempted coup. It was ultimately successful in the course of 2020, but the idea was to force him either to resign or be impeached in the first 6 months. And they hamstrung his presidency. Only someone with the tenacity of Donald Trump, and I don't know of any others, could have possibly survived what they did to him in 2017 and after. And so, I don't know why the Justice Department is moving as slowly as it is on some of these cases. I do understand some of the problems they're up against, as we saw in the Eastern District of Virginia with the two indictments that have been messed with by a liberal Clinton appointee judge. But some of this stuff can be addressed if Kash Patel is successful in bringing this grand conspiracy case against everybody who was involved in that coup attempt. That is really the game changer if they can bring it to a head, because that should be tried in the Southern District of Florida. That gives them venue where they can get a decent judge, they can get an impartial jury, and they can actually breach the statute of limitations wall and get back to some of the worst crimes that took place, especially in 2016. All of that is beyond the ability to act upon in Northern Virginia or in the District of Columbia. But this grand conspiracy theory is actually quite impressive. It's a good bit of legal work, and I hope that Kash is able to bring it to fruition.
I think it is crucial because there is one continuing conspiracy born in the White House, used to create the Russian collusion hoax, deeply involved in the fraud of the 2020 election, also the author of 2 phony impeachments, later the architects of the Jack Smith witch hunt, as well as the Mueller witch hunt, an extra constitutional exercise called Arctic Frost, which we'll talk about when we come back. You're absolutely right. We'll be back with Rod Martin. Get him over at rodmartin.org. He is a thinker and a gentleman and scholar, but above all, he loves justice. We'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. Later in the show, former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, viciously framed by the Biden Justice Department, wrongfully convicted as a drug trafficker in a politically motivated hit in an extraordinarily flimsy case, joins us to talk about why he both deserved this pardon and what the forces now of repression are trying to do in Honduras. But Rod, I want to go to a larger issue. The president said during the campaign that he would end the war between Russia and Ukraine quickly. That has proved elusive. As you know, you have to play 3-card Monte here. There's the Russians, there's the Ukraine, and then there's NATO. Break this down for us, please.
The biggest problem in coming to a peace deal in Russia is that Putin overpromised very badly to his own oligarchs. And as long as he's still in the war, he has a chance at victory, which keeps him moderately safe in the Kremlin. But at some point, he has to admit that he was defeated. And the truth is, he was defeated. There's no escaping. He was trying to take Kiev in 3 days. He was trying to capture the country and bring about regime change to reverse the color revolution in 2014, and all of that has failed. And they haven't been able to meaningfully move the front line all of this year. It's just an awful war of attrition. It's killing all these people. But Putin is worried about him getting killed. So Donald Trump has to craft a deal that is sufficiently attractive to all the parties involved, including the individual parties, to be able to bring this to a successful conclusion. I do believe he will. I believe it's in the interest of both countries to come to a peace. We just have to find the terms that make that possible. And the chief among those has to be meaningful security guarantees for Ukraine, short of allowing it into NATO, because from the Russian perspective, if it's a member of NATO, that effectively puts a German army in Kharkov, 2 days march from Red Square. That reverses the outcome of World War II. They will never accept it.
Yes, and it would be a violation of the Budapest Memorandum, which was signed on behalf of the United States by Secretary of State James A. Baker, signing for George H.W. Bush, and the later Minsk Accords, both of which we agreed not to push Ukraine into NATO, which, of course, is what Joe Biden has ultimately done. That has long been the plan. That said, time is running out for Zelensky. $100 million scandal by one of his closest aides. We both know this scratches the surface and the enormous grifting that's going on with federal funds. Much of those funds do return to the United States and go into the hands of the defense contractors for whom war is good, creating some jobs here, but a lot of money here for people who sell bombs. But if you believe Elon Musk, Congressman Tim Burchett, some of those funds have also made their way back into the pockets of political leaders in the Congress who have supported these multi-million-dollar gambits. Do you think, Rod, that we haven't seen documentation of that? Do you think that is a possibility?
I think it's a very strong possibility. There's no good excuse for Hunter Biden to be on the board of Burisma. That's just nonsense. Good point. Absolutely no qualifications for that. Why would you go to another country across an ocean to pick a guy who, just happens to be the son of the guy you think might be president someday? And, we've got countless examples like that in American political life, principally on the left, but some of our rhinos too, where the children have some lucrative financial deal either with the Ukrainians or with the Chinese communists. And Peter Schweitzer has done a great job of lining that out in one or two of his books. He'd be a good interview too. But this is just a real problem we're facing, and I think it's part of what you're going to see when you talk to Juan Orlando, because the truth is the Democrats are in bed with the cartels too.
It is a massive problem we're going to talk about when we get back. Folks, Rod Martin, entrepreneur, thinker, conservative, gentleman, an expert on technology, biotech, aerospace, energy. Go to rodmartin.org and subscribe now. We'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. If you love live entertainment and you love the holidays, I've got the ticket for you. It begins December 20th. It's the Home for Holidays show of Mr. Christmas himself, Vinny Modugno. This guy's an exceptionally dynamic performer, singing all of your favorite Christmas hits, live performances. You can wear your ugly Christmas sweaters, and it's Mr. Christmas himself. This is a one-time opportunity this season, singing your holiday favorites. You hear him live in concert December 20th on WABC Radio. For more information and tickets, go to homefortheholidays2025.com. That's homefortheholidays2025.com. get your tickets for the dynamic, incredible Vinny Madunio singing all your Christmas favorites live in concert at the WABC headquarters in Studio 77. Check it out. So today's New York Times says that Marco Rubio, who has really been in the forefront of the strident anti-communism, whether it is in Venezuela or whether it's in Cuba or whether it is emerging in Honduras and elsewhere in our hemisphere, that he has been a fierce warrior, and they say that he may dream of toppling the brutal Cuban regime. The Times, of course, says that as criticism. It's what I like about Marco Rubio, but he is not only Secretary of State, he also serves a secondary role as the National Security Advisor. In addition to that, he is a temporarily, believe it or not, the Archivist of the United States. He has a fourth title. It's a backbreaking job. I read James A. Baker III wrote a terrific book about his time as Secretary of State, and you spend most of your time on an airplane. And he has a bureaucracy in the State Department that doesn't like, a strong Secretary of State who reflects the policies of the president. I would never have thought that Marco Rubio would emerge as the feistiest and one of the most outstanding of those executing President Trump's America First policies, fighting narco-terrorism, fighting Marxism, fighting dictatorships in this hemisphere. But he has really emerged. But I like his kind of spunk. Here's Marco Rubio. He's testifying at the U.S. Senate under oath. A bunch of news cameras, fake news, want to interview him. Listen to this.
He used to talk to us, actually. That'll do.
Marco Rubio, you got to love it. He has to not only pay attention to Venezuela, clearly the pressure on Maduro is being ratcheted up. Maduro's, I think, engaging in some great PR gymnastics, claiming to have tough policies against drug trafficking when he's, of course, the biggest Marxist narco-trafficker of them all, surrounding himself with Catholic nuns and singing "Don't Worry, Be Happy," wearing a straw hat. But I think he is petrified that he could be taken out by a Soleimani-type strike. I don't think that's likely. I think that is his paranoia, but sources tell me that. And Rubio has really been in the forefront of this, but I think Rubio has a new problem on his hands in Honduras. Less than a week before the Honduran national president, President Trump, of course, endorsed Tito Astafurra of the Nationalist Party, which he has an absolute right to do. He then also subsequently pardoned, unilaterally issued an unconditional pardon for former Honduran president elected by the Nationalist Party, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who will join us shortly to tell his own horrific story. I had written about this case and followed it very closely when American journalists gave me a letter from the former president to be passed on to the President of the United States. Before I decided to do so, I read the case, complete all of the public documents, and I could see that the three principal witnesses against Juan Orlando Hernandez were all convicted drug traffickers, all of whom had been prosecuted under his administration. And because of a law that he signed, an extradition treaty, which no Honduran president has ever been willing to sign, the very drug traffickers who he had extradited to the United States ended up as the witnesses against him, and all of them got out of jail free cards for doing so. All of them conspired with the Libra Party. But the Libra Party has had huge problems because the election has not worked out as they had expected. Libra Party nominated Rixi Moncada, who says Fidel Castro is her idol, and she was more of the same. They did something very, very clever, though, and that is they tried to throw a ringer into the race. It was very, very clear that the vice president, Salvador Nasrallah, who previously served as the vice president of the Honduras under the outgoing Marxist president Xiomar Castro of Libra, has deep ties to the party and continues to work hand in glove with the Libra party to fund party operations. Nasrallah's public split with Libra, I think, was to set him up as what we in American politics call a ringer. He had a television presence. He was meant to siphon votes from the candidate of the Nationalist Party, Tito Asfura, but that failed. Now the leftist elements in the government are insisting that this election, this duly constituted election, not be certified. Nasrallah himself is the loudest, insisting that he's been cheated when there is no evidence of that. The final count shows him losing. Suddenly, the Libra party, who in the past have always dominated elections in Honduras, came in a distant third, and of course are now trying to invalidate this election, which pro-U.S. anti-immigration, anti-narco trafficker Tito Asfura won. It's not incidental that the first thing after when Orlando Hernandez signed the extradition treaty, that his successor, Xiomar Castro, rescinded that action. So who is it that is in the pocket of the narco drug traffickers? This is an open and shut case. And the truth of the matter is that Hernandez, today will be my first conversation with him ever. We've never actually communicated directly. I was happy to have his gracious wife, the former First Lady, and his two daughters. I had his wife, Ana Garcia de Hernandez, on, as well as daughters Ana Daniela Hernandez and her daughter Isabel Hernandez. But I only spoke to them after their father was pardoned. And no, I was paid nothing for my advocacy, not a penny. And I received this document, decided to send it on to the president. I've confirmed that. But all it takes is an examination, as Matt Gaetz did in a great interview with President Hernandez. He was subjected to the same vicious lawfare as President Donald Trump in the Jack Smith investigation, in the Robert Mueller investigation, in the vile lawfare against him in the New York court system. The kind of tactics used against General Michael Flynn, the kind of tactics used against me, against Paul Manafort and others, and they're fraudulent. They're now thoroughly and completely busted, and the question is whether they will see justice. This is a very key point that Rod Martin was making, because this is a continuing seditious conspiracy. It's born in an Oval Office meeting in April of, I believe it's 2016. And it is absolutely clear Barack Obama knows that Hillary Clinton has a plan to falsely claim Russian interference to benefit Donald Trump in the election. She approves a false claim that Alpha Bank, a Russian bank, maintains a computer terminal inside the Trump Organization headquarters. Turns out to be a fabricated lie that Jake Sullivan, her national security advisor, later Joe Biden's national security, lied about. And you have this stunning act that's come to light where 51 intelligence officers, former or current, all got together knowingly, admitting that as Mike Morrell, the former director of the CIA, former deputy director of the CIA, called Joe Biden an incoherent vegetable, I believe it was, go into the debate, which gives you some idea why 51 spies lied. It was outrageous to see Hunter Biden attacking Miranda Devine of the New York Post, by far one of the very best investigative reporters in the country. She busted the Hunter Biden laptop story wide open, along with one of her colleagues over at Breitbart. She's a great lady and a great journalist, so to make fun of her looks or her talents by a piece of, well, I think you know what I think of Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden's lawyers tried to sue me when I started to comment on his case, insisting that I preserve all my documents pertaining to Hunter Biden, which would be none whatsoever other than what I read in the New York Post and the and Breitbart Online and other places. Famously, you'll remember that X, then known as Twitter, banned the New York Post from reporting that Hunter Biden's laptop contents were real. That shows you how far we've come under Elon Musk, where this information is not banned today. It's still, with its faults, X, formerly known as Twitter, is still the leading free speech app in the country. I say that not because I'm paid to say it, but because it's true. Elon Musk bought this company, and then he very forcefully handed over the evidence that the U.S. government intelligence agencies worked hand in glove with the techies at Twitter to silence us, to cancel us, to limit us in our reach, to censor us in violation of the U.S. Constitution. So it is amazing that we've gotten to this point. Donald Trump is right about the economy. He knows that ultimately the things he's put in place are going to bring us a strong economy. And those who keep whining about the 2026 elections, what he calls panicking, they may be whistling another tune. I'm Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show, and we'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, the Trump administration has a fox in the hen house. I think the president and his aides must remain on guard against subversive forces that are looking to undermine the president's agenda from within. Many of them are burrowed deep into the federal bureaucracy, some of them in less high-profile jobs where they hope they can slither their way without public recognition. One of these examples, shocking, is the SEC. I believe he is the director of enforcement, the number 2 position at the SEC, Sam Walden. Walden is a multi-time Biden-Harris donor, even donating to Kamala Harris just 2 days before the election day of 2024. Despite his open political advocacy for Democrats, he still masquerades as a neutral enforcer who stands up for the rule of law. But he was one of the key engineers of Operation Choke Point 2.0, policies that tried to treat cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and the alternative monetary system that has flourished in the world and under Donald Trump, claiming that certain elements that they were selling were securities, charging people for lacking a license to sell securities. Walden himself was one of the key architects of the Biden-era assault by then chairman of the SEC, Gary Gensler, against the entire crypto industry. Was under Walden's enforcement regime, Gensler initiated the policy to debank crypto coin entrepreneurs and treat them as if they were selling drugs or weapons. President Trump, of course, has reversed these policies and talked about the important role that the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin will play in the world's economic future as well as the country's economic future. But this is really extraordinary to learn that someone who was responsible for filing most of the most egregious lawsuits against crypto entrepreneurs, some of the most outrageous, heavy-handed efforts to destroy crypto, is in the number 2 position in the Trump administration's SEC. And how this has happened, we don't know, but it was very easy to go online and look at his contributing pattern. It is extraordinarily clear that this person is a vicious partisan, and their role in Arctic Frost alone is problematic. Arctic Frost is the most extra-constitutional, illegal, politically and legally unbelievable operation by the government, using government authority and power to violate the constitutional rights of people like Donald Trump and myself. The idea that you would compile a list of people just randomly, conservatives, Trump supporters, Republican and conservative organizations, you would surveil all of them without probable cause, that you would go out of your way to try to frame them for crimes is beyond belief. And the underlying premise of Mueller's case, of Smith's cases are absurd. Alternative electors are not prohibited by law. They have rich American history forming an alternative elector slate. While there's ongoing litigation regarding the outcome of any given state election, saved Hawaii for John Kennedy in 1960, and is not in itself a crime. But spying on U.S. senators is unacceptable. That's very clear. There's growing evidence that Gina Haspel at the CIA spied on a House committee that was investigating what the CIA knew about the alleged Russian collusion, which she knew was fabricated but did nothing to stop and tell the man who appointed her. Gina Haspel, by the way, previously John Brennan's top operative in London. I don't know who sold this to the president in his first term, but it was an error. We'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
On November 30th, Honduras held a presidential election. 2 days before that, President Donald Trump issued a full and unconditional pardon to former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez. That's because the president examined the case against Hernandez, as I did, and saw that he was lynched using the same kind of tactics that Jack Smith and Robert Mueller tried to use on Donald Trump, and set up on fabricated charges of drug trafficking, when in fact he was the president of Honduras who signed an extradition treaty for drug traffickers. And the very drug traffickers that he agreed to extradite to the United States ended up as the principal witnesses against him. All of them convicted drug traffickers, all of whom got a get-out-of-jail-free card. This was a politically motivated lynching with a political motivation to stop the Nationalist Party and to extend the narco-Marxist regime of Xiomara Castro, who admits that she admires Fidel Castro. And they have now, it appears to me, lost this election. But first, I want to say this is the first time that President Hernandez and I have ever spoken. We've never communicated directly. I became aware of his case and the dynamics of Honduran politics. I wrote about them extensively. I reached the conclusion that he had been framed in a flimsy case against him for political reasons. I advocated publicly and privately for his pardon, and I thank God that he has listened and President Trump has done the right thing. A man unjustly sentenced to a 45-year sentence for crimes he did not commit. President Hernandez, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Roger Stone. Thank you for having me. If you allow me to thank publicly to the Lord God that helped me to overcome this terrible situation. But also, I want to thank President Trump, who take the courage to correct this great injustice. And it was, as you know, he granted me a full and unconditional pardon. Of course, my family, my friends, so many people in Honduras and in other countries praying for almost 4 years, asking for this. But especially now that I am talking to you for the first time, I want to thank you, because you took the time to investigate, you learned about my case, and you did a very important job that anybody who could speak about something like my case should have done. in order to know what really happened. So I really appreciate the way you handle this, because you did a research, you investigate all your team, and you know the situation in detail. And whoever knows my case in detail, they really know that I was wrongfully convicted and that I was the one who at that time in Honduras made the decision to confront the narco traffickers, because nobody wanted to did it, because they felt that they had been killing so many people who have tried, and also they remember what happened in Colombia, the narco terrorism at that time when they're trying to extradite Pablo Escobar and the other narcos. And at one point I told somebody in Congress, when I was a Speaker of Congress in Honduras, knowing that 8 out of 10 cases of violence in Honduras are related to drug trafficking, if we don't do something, it's like there is no point of being here in Congress. At that time, Mr. Stone, Honduras was the country with the highest murder rate in the planet. And I am the one of those people, if I know something, I cannot look the other way, because if I look the other way, it's because I made the decision of not doing anything. So I confronted this. And almost a century, we didn't have any extradition at all between the United States and Honduras. I lead the process to amend our constitution, to create other very important legal instruments and policies to fight these criminals. And at the end, the Biden administration, the deep state, framed me. And they weaponized the justice system to put me in jail, and in order to let the bad guys free. But also, they did it because they wanted the political allies, the very radical left in Honduras, to become empowered. Now that a lot of information is coming out, there are videos, there are recordings, documents linking the radical left party, who already lost the election in Honduras last Sunday. They were really linked. They had that evidence since 2013, and the DOJ didn't use it. And my question is why? And possibly the answer is because they were protecting them, because they want the radical left to become empowered. And in order to do that, they have to destroy my image, attack my party and the institution in Honduras in order to the radical left to become empowered. But now, the public in Honduras, the citizens, they overwhelmingly rejected that failed ideology of the radical left, and they are losing very bad. But anyway, thank you for having me.
It is really amazing that at your trial, a U.S. government representative gave false testimony claiming that cocaine trafficking to the United States had increased drastically under your administration, when in fact that was entirely false, that you signed numerous cooperative agreements with the United States, including, as you point out, for the first time ever, an extradition treaty to crack down on it. President Trump publicly praised you for doing that. The case against you is largely based on conjecture, but more importantly, the testimony of two murderous cartel leaders who had an axe to grind against you because your administration prosecuted them and extradited them. These, both of them, were extradited to the United States in 2004 under the agreement that you signed. Both of these men are hardened criminals, murderers. They played the DEA, I think, masterfully, but it takes two to tango, and the Biden Justice Department was in the same mode they were in their case against me. And the differences here are really extraordinary. James Comey and I are charged with the exact same crime, yet he has no 6 a.m. raid. The judge puts no gag on him he is allowed to argue, as I wasn't, that he was politically targeted, that this was selective prosecution. You, sir, were absolutely framed. The hard left, the narrative is driving them crazy. Trump pardons a drug trafficker, the Esquire magazine. None of these people have examined the case against you. They need to read the case file, and they will see that you were a target. I want to talk about the most recent election. You made a very good point, which is that Libra has run last, posting, I think, a 19% finish. Embarrassing for the party in power. And former Vice President Salvador Nasralla, who I believe was planted in this race to try to siphon votes from Tito Asfura. Certainly appears that way to me. He now joins the Marxists and try to void what I think was a legitimate election that was won by Tito Asfura. What say you, sir?
Well, the information that I have is that all the documents of each polling session that my party already have and the other parties all indicate that Tito Asfura is the one who win the election. Right now, they are starting the process of verifying a few documents of some polling stations that they have to review, but all indicates that the winner clearly is Tito Asfura. But what the people in Honduras have realized from, let's say, 3-4 days ago until now, is that Nasralla and Mel Zelaya from the Liberal Party, they are talking again and trying to get together in order to overturn the election. But everybody have seen the election. We have a lot of observers from international observers, Honduran observers, and the Honduran people are fed up. And even the army, I believe that they already said the process is doing well. We have to finish it, and we have to respect what is the result. And at this point, civil society organization, private sectors, churches, everybody is saying, let's finish this, and we cannot allow any wrongdoing because the process has to finish as it is. So I feel really confident that the result is going to be positive for the National Party at the three levels: presidential level, the mayoral elections too, and Congress. But of course, the left, the radical left, they have a playbook.
Yes, they certainly.
They even said before. They even said before every election that if they don't win, it's because it
was rigged.
There is a fraud.
Yeah,
so,
it was rigged.
You know what it is.
This is their playbook. We're talking to former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, a man who's just told you that he was sustained by his faith in God, and he fervently prayed that he would be delivered from these horrific prisons where he was framed. And anyone who will look at his case will see that. What's really amazing is that when I tried to obtain through Freedom of Information Acts the publicly available documents regarding the plea deal done with the two drug traffickers who testified against him, those documents the government won't hand over. This was a fraudulent conviction of an honest man. I was very honored to have the former First Lady of Honduras, Ana Garcia de Hernandez, and their daughters, Ana Daniela Hernandez and Isabella Hernandez, on with me. But we again only communicated after this great act of mercy and justice by Donald Trump. So it is. We are in a historic time. Honduras is a prize to the narco traffickers. It would join Venezuela and Cuba as orbits for them. And of course, they have the willing, complicit assistance of the Chinese. So I'm glad to see that Marco Rubio's standing up to this threat. It remains to be seen whether the legitimate election in Honduras will be honored or whether there is a Marxist coup d'etat in our backyard, something that Marco Rubio and President Trump would have to deal with as they are dealing with Venezuela, as they must deal with Cuba. In the meantime, it's my great honor to have with us former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, a man who was unjustly sent to hell, but through prayer and reason is able to join us today. And anyone who wants to examine the case for pardoning him, I have written extensively about it. The evidence was manipulated here in a Jack Smith, Jack Mueller judicial, I should say, prosecutorial overreach and politically motivated frame job that is very flimsy indeed. So I have no qualms about being an advocate for this pardon, and I'm honored that you would join us today. You're listening to The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks, and we'll be right back with the former president of Honduras on the other side.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back with former President of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez. During the Biden-Harris administration's campaign of retribution against President Trump and his allies, they zeroed in on Hernandez and curried favor with the far-left Libre Party. The Libre Party was led by Xiomara Castro, part of the infamous Zelaya family with deep ties to both Cuba and Venezuelan communists, including Maduro. But those ties did not faze the Biden Justice Department, and President Hernandez was framed in a vicious assault. They filed their indictment of him on January 27th, one day after Hernandez left office, and as Vice President Kamala Harris traveled to Honduras to celebrate the inauguration of narco-Marxist Xiomara Castro, to put the Biden administration seal of approval on this leftist regime. So I'm going to ask the former president, Mr. President, take off your hat as a statesman, take off your hat as a president, put on your hat as a politician, and tell me and answer this. The elections were held on Sunday, November 30th, on Friday, to the surprise of everybody, including yours truly. President Donald Trump took to Truth Social to announce hours after he'd already endorsed Tito Asfura that he was going to grant you a free and unconditional pardon. And I know that moment of relief, but here's my question. Did the fact that dominated the news in Honduras for the closing days of the election, did this benefit the nationalists at the end, who won a very narrow but significant victory?
It is. Indeed, that's what it is. The thing is this, in Central America, and there has been a lot of influence from the Venezuelan regime. And but people was thought that maybe something were true or were not true. For example, all the ordeal that the Venezuelan people have been living for more than a decade under the regime of Maduro. But when President Trump said it clearly that these guys were, put it in simple words, the bad guys, a failed ideology, the radical left, so people started to pay attention. But also when he said that the former vice president could be also related with them, it was another hit, a very important one. And of course, when he talked about Asfura, that President Trump said, we are going to work with Asfura very closely, and I am pardoning President Juan Orlando. My party received like an energizing push.
Of course, it is validation that you were framed. It's exoneration. The president looked at your case and he made a judgment that you had been politically lynched. Your name had been destroyed. You had been sent to prison for 45 years, separated from your beautiful family. It is true, as my colleague Matt Gaetz pointed out, that the evidence against your brother is stronger than the evidence they presented against you, which was frankly very flimsy. But there's no evidence that you participated in any illegal activity with your brother or anyone else. And you had asked the authorities in Honduras to investigate your brother during your time as president to be certain that you had no conflicts. But of course, that won't be written in Esquire magazine or any of the other liberal spots. So I want to send my heartfelt thanks for your faith in God, your faith in President Donald Trump, your commitment to stop the Marxist narco-drug traffickers. I know what it is to have your name dragged through the mud when you've done nothing wrong. I know what it is to face a vicious, all-powerful federal judiciary with unlimited resources and leftist activist judges in their pocket. But you have transcended that. And you go on to fight for the freedom of the Honduran people because the fight never ends. I want to thank President Juan Orlando Hernandez. My friend, God bless you and Godspeed.
God bless you, and thank you very much.
There you have it, folks. It's a narrative the left doesn't like, but this man was lynched. If anyone will examine his conviction and those who testified against him, these are the very people he prosecuted. They got out of jail. This is what we call a fugazi. That's it for us today on The Roger Stone Show. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.